Digital Business Evolution, welcome back to the show. Really excited today. We've got another mic drop.
You and your drum rolls.
I don't know what else to do. It's like, and the crowd goes wild. Mic drop.
And nobody effing cares. All right, let's rock.
So we recently were having a conversation about reflecting on our journey, and we realized, wow, we've been investing for quite some time in ourselves, in our personal growth, in our business growth. And so it was like, well, we should be having this conversation on the podcast because it's probably going to be helpful for other people. So that's what we're doing today. We're chatting all things good investments, bad investments, mindset around investing, and everything in between.
Yeah, what type of investments? More so, because I know we were having two different conversations. Yeah. More so the ones about investing in yourself.
Yeah, like
right?
Education. Yeah, personal growth. Today's conversation is not about 401ks, Roth IRAs.
Not today.
Yeah, not that stuff today. But that's important too. So you should be doing that too. But we were talking about sort of this idea of good investments and bad investments. And I say that in quotes because we both believe that there really is no such thing as a bad investment, because like anything that doesn't go your way, which could be deemed as a failure, it's actually just a lesson, right? So,
yeah, I mean, you learn a lesson, but it ultimately does come down to, you can say good and bad based on what your goals are, right? So, depending on your goals, you could classify something as, hey, this wasn't the best investment, this wasn't a good investment. But to your point, I agree with you. You still learn a lesson about it, and hopefully you won't repeat that specific same thing.
Yeah, and we've had some bad investments that have stung quite a bit, specifically in like more of a startup type of realm.
Yeah.
But again, it's the lessons that you take, and then how do you integrate those into the future decisions that you're going to make, whether it's personal or financial, we'll say.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though is like when I think about good investment, bad investment, when it comes to the personal development space, I can't think of a bad one.
No.
Right?
No, not at all.
I can think of, there's some situations
where better than others.
Yeah, some were much better than others, and some were not so great, but it wasn't like we were shocked and like, why did we invest in this?
Yeah.
So
I would have to agree.
Yeah, and I think some of that is personal responsibility.
Yeah.
I think you taking advantage of the opportunity, being gritty, putting in the work, which a lot of people don't do. So I think when we talk about whether it was good or bad, it's like, well, you have to really reflect and ask yourself, did I, when it comes to a personal development, business development type of investment, did I put in the necessary work to even give this a chance?
Well, there's definitely a belief that if I put money into something, that it will work through osmosis, and it doesn't work that way.
No, and also like you always say this when people are either about to join some of our programs or they already have, you're just like, look, you're not investing in me, you're investing in yourself. It works if you work it. And
You've heard me a couple times.
Yeah, that's not always the case, because look, if you're about to invest in something or join a program or something that's new, you don't always have a lot of testimonials to go off of and say
right.
like, oh, well, 500 people have done this, so I know that it's on me to make it work, right? So I get that, but when something does have the amount of people that we've had specifically go through something like Empower, and that's where you always say like, if you work it, it works, because that's true. Yeah. That's true as of right now. It's February 2023. It works if you work it.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, let's start off, I guess, right from the top. The first, I guess it's really the first when you think about this world that we're in now, this coaching world, this online space.
My first investment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've told the story a little bit, but I have a little bit of a different perspective that we were literally just talking about. Yeah. So this is what sparked the conversation. We were like, we have to tell everybody about this perspective.
Well, and even to go back further, so I'm very fortunate to say that my whole life, my parents were investing in things for me, you too, putting us into sports or local communities that they thought that it would be things that I would be interested in to get me around like-minded people.
Yeah.
When we transition into the adult life, most of us don't have someone advocating for us to like put us into a club. And so my equivalent of those clubs or those sports is things like masterminds and business courses and programs. And so a lot of people look at it as, I've even heard people say to me like, oh, you pay for your friends. And I do. And I did growing up too. My parents put me in gymnastics so that I would have other gymnastics friends.
That's that's an interesting
Right.
point. Yeah, because and think about it, people go to different schools,
Right.
people join different organizations.
Sure.
I guess the only ones that you're not I guess even the neighborhood you live in, technically, right? Because like I was gonna say, your neighbor, if you have a neighbor that's the same age as you, you're not paying for that, but like your parents technically chose to live in that particular neighborhood. But
yeah.
Anyway, the first one.
Yeah, so I started investing as an adult in my adult life really through fitness. And so yes, I was a trainer for 18 years, but I started investing in also having a trainer, and that transitioned to my first business investment, which was a fitness coach turned business coach. So in 2014, going into 2015, because we were engaged at the time.
Yeah. Shout out Kathy Savage.
Yes, always.
Not for the engagement.
No,
he did the engagement. Although I did see Kathy, I think the day before. Oh no, the day
I was at the studio.
Yeah, I dropped you off the studio. Anyway.
Yeah. So Kathy was a fitness coach of mine who was also a business mentor. And in 2014-15, she started a business mentoring program for a lot of these fitness professionals like myself. And gosh, I wanted to do that program so badly.
Yeah.
At the time, I was a teacher making probably $48,000, $46,000 a year. And we were living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, we had just bought a house.
Yep. And I was under the impression that we couldn't afford I couldn't afford this program, and it was $1,500.
Yep.
Which at the time was the equivalent to one of my paychecks. I think it was a little bit more than one of my paychecks.
Yeah, probably after taxes and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so very fortunately, I think it was because my parents saw something in me.
Well, yes, but I know exactly. I remember it specifically. They were over our house, and we were hanging out. And you were speaking like you are now, where you were like, oh man, this sounds like such an awesome opportunity. And your parents, being the menches, is that correct, babe?
Yes, menches.
Menches that they are. They reached out to you the next day or something. They were just like, we want to pay for this.
Well, because we said that we weren't going to do it.
Correct.
Because I said I couldn't afford it. It's too stressful. I'm not going to do it as much as I want to, and I probably was really lit up about it.
You were lit up.
Yeah.
And they trust you. They know that you go all out with what you do. But yeah, so you borrowed the money. Actually, they kind of just gave it to you.
They did, with the intention that I was going to pay them back.
Yeah.
That was the intention. So they did. They paid for it for me because they saw something in me, and they knew that I really wanted to do it, and they knew that I'd pay them back, and we just we didn't have the liquid money at the time.
Well, so here's the reason why we wanted to talk about this, because it's easy. Now, people might say, okay, well, because a lot of our audience, they're scared to invest in programs for whatever reason. Maybe they're tight with money, whatever the reason might be. We weren't going to do it.
Yes.
And people might say, well, yeah, but your parents did it for you. And it's like that.
We're aware
of that. Yes. And we're aware how grateful we are and how blessed, right?
Yes.
However, this is the important thing. If they didn't give us the money, we wouldn't have done it, and we wouldn't be where we are today. We would be somewhere and probably, who knows, be happy, whatever. But we would not be on the path that we've been on since you joined.
It was really crazy, like the dominoes.
The dominoes, since you joined with Kathy. And this is the lesson here. We could have figured it out.
Yes.
Because there was credit cards we could have put it on. We could have asked your parents for the money.
Yes.
We could have bootstrapped and hustled. And I know some people get triggered by the bootstrapping thing, but we could have figured it out.
But let's give some tangible bootstrap ideas.
Okay.
Because
but even before that, though, like think about this, right? What were we doing at the time? We were still going out, spending money on quote stupid things, and we could have figured it out. Now, for the people that aren't spending money on stupid things and they're just focused on food and their living expenses, which I get is a reality, especially right now in today's society when everyone's talking about eggs. They're like, I don't know, $9 a dozen or something, right? It's a reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's bootstrapping from, you can reduce your expenses,
right?
But also, if you can't reduce your expenses, if you're down to bare bones, but you still have these goals, aspirations where you're like, no, I meant for more, I want to build something, you can bootstrap other ways.
Well, you can find money, you can create money, and I also was doing that. So I had a side hustle and I had a side job on top of being a teacher. So I already was doing a lot of things. It's not like I just was asking for assistance. We were bootstrapping in that way. We could have tightened the belt more, And now hindsight's 2020. So standing in the kitchen 10 minutes ago, having the conversation of like, wow, we could have done this, we could have done that. So some of the things that we were just thinking about were even, and we have done them now in the last, 8 to 10 years. Selling clothing. I know it's not ideal, but selling clothing on Poshmark or going on like Facebook Marketplace, you can sell furniture that you have in your home. All of us have so many electronics that you can sell. We have we have electronics that we don't even use.
Yeah.
You can sell services. We were on Rover last night, which is an app.
I was just about to say the Rover thing.
Yeah, so we were on Rover last night, which is an app to do dog sitting or boarding. So if you're a dog person or a cat person, you can house sit for people. You can
There's
walk
very
dogs.
few excuses in today's day and age.
Uber, Grubhub.
Where you can't. This is the side hustle economy.
Yes.
It's the creative economy, side hustle economy. It's not, the day where there's one mill in the town and everyone works at the mill. And if the mill shuts down, Bruce Springsteen songs, like the mill shuts down, everyone loses their jobs and they ain't coming back, right? It's like, that's not where we're at for the most part. Now, I understand that there's some parts of society that, they might not be able to afford a phone or internet or things
Sure.
like that. And I'm very sensitive to that situation. But for the most part, there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a ways to monetize. I love the Rover thing that you brought up.
Yeah.
DoorDash, Uber,
Grubhub,
Lyft, all these different
But
ways.
also just babysitting, right? So if you don't have a car, if you don't have a phone to use one of these apps, maybe you're younger. Maybe you're just like in high school or fresh out of high school or college and you don't have skill sets or certifications yet and you're thinking that that's a barrier to entry. There are things that you can do like, babysitting. You can wash people's cars. You can shovel driveways. Now, it's not necessarily always fun and it's not really the thing that you might want to do. But when you said goals before, it had me thinking of just, if the goal is to get to X, then you need to be okay with sometimes doing things along the way, which for us, when I did quit my teaching job, I got a job as a personal trainer where I had to pick the weights up off the floor and wear the name tag at a big box gym. And for the record, I had been a personal trainer at the time for about 12 or 13 years, training celebrities and doing magazines and TV things. So I felt that I was above that. I had an exercise physiology degree, right? Like I was above having to pick up weights.
Entitlement.
Yeah.
And most people wouldn't.
Correct.
Would have, the title entitlement would have just, encompassed them.
Right. But knowing that ego's your biggest overhead.
Yep.
And I had to, it was a choice, but I got to put my ego aside, do something that maybe I thought I was better than, didn't want to do, I thought I was above, just to make ends meet.
The point is you figured it out.
By doing something that I didn't necessarily want to do,
Right.
or getting uncomfortable for a short-term discomfort for a long-term gain.
It's the goals, right?
It's the goals.
If you say this is my goal,
Yep.
you have to be willing to do what it takes. You as the individual to do what it takes to get to that goal. If you say that that's what your goal is,
Yeah.
and you're not going to lose unless you quit,
Right.
right? So it's like, okay, now I say individual because it's going to take somebody. I always use this example where like people are like, well, I'm not about this grind culture, and it's just like, great, like no one should work till like exhaustion, but at the same time, there's different talent levels, there's different education levels, there's all sorts of different societal things, socioeconomic, demographics, all this stuff that plays into somebody's individual performance. So if you work 12 hours, let's flip it around. If you work 6 hours and you produce X, and I work 12 and I produce X, and we're even, okay, it takes me 12 hours to do what it takes you 6. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Now, if I'm like, well, she's only working 6 hours, I should work 6 hours. Like, I don't want to burn out. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to burn out, but like, I have to make the decision, like, is my goal that important? Not to the importance that you're going to like be unhealthy.
Right.
But like, if I want to hit that goal and it takes me 12 hours and it takes you 6, like, that's just what it is.
Right. So it just
now
might
you
take
might
you
have
twice as long.
$20,000 in the bank and I have 0, but we both have this investment opportunity in front of us. You can just be like, oh, I got this. Let me just write a check for $1,500, $5,000, $10,000.
Right.
I got it. Right.
Right.
Now this is the reality of the world. I don't have the same opportunity as you from a monetary standpoint. I'm at 0. I need to figure out if my goals are important enough. I'm either going to just have to do it myself and figure it out, which is very time consuming and hard.
Possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But if I want to accelerate it, enjoying this program,
right.
then I'm the only choice is I need to figure out how to come up with the money,
right.
whether it's this cohort or the next cohort. I need to figure out how to get into this program because I think this is the program that's going to help me.
Absolutely.
Not go take something that's cheaper, not go, I don't know, like bounce around niche to niche or coach to coach or whatever. I need to make the decision and figure out, do I need to do Grubhub? Do I need to do Rover? Do I need to do all those examples that we just shared to be able to pay for that program?
Yeah.
And when I think about the fact that we almost didn't do it.
I know.
Right?
I don't even know where we'd be. I probably would still be a teacher.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's one of those situations where you look back and you're like, wow, I'm so grateful that your parents like pushed.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, this is what we want to do for you.
And what's crazy is at the time, what I thought that I would be building is completely different than what we actually have built. And it doesn't matter. It's a breadcrumb.
Breadcrumb.
Yeah, it's a breadcrumb.
It like, same thing as when you went and were picking up weights at the gym.
Yep.
What did that lead to? That led to you opening one of the most, it was one of the more like prestigious gyms in the city at the time.
It was the most prestigious.
Yeah, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
That exposed you to all different people.
Brand partnerships.
Some of those people, brand partners, to some of those people were the first people that were in Empower, which is so cool.
Yeah, that's where I built it.
Right. So it's just like, yeah, like you always say, you can't connect the dots looking forward. But it's nice to look back and say, man, what a lesson that was. Because we did do it, but it wasn't on our own accord. It was because your parents gave you the money and like, shame on us.
But we quickly learned from that. And so then fast forward a couple years, which after that investment, I did take, I guess you can call them gap years. I took like 3 gap years where I was like duct taping things together, just using and repeating what I had learned. We had stopped with investing in mentors and coaches at the time because I was still working full-time as a teacher. Mm-hmm. And we had no plan of me leaving. So there was not a path of, I'm going to quit one day and be an entrepreneur.
Which looking back on that was, I don't want to say a mistake, but that slowed us down as well.
It did slow the progress
down. Because what an advantage, and we say this all the time to the people that are in our programs that are like, but I have a full-time job, and we're just like, you are in the best position possible.
Seriously.
Because you have a steady income.
Yep.
You're building your side hustle.
Yep. And
you're just, I heard you say this one time, you use the side hustle to fund the business. If you can change your mindset around, sorry. You use your full-time job to fund the business.
Yes.
And if you can, cause like, I don't like my job though. And it's just like, flip your mindset around and just, that is funding this. This is going to take a little while, but once this gets going and it replaces that, then you can leave.
Yeah.
And it's not as risky.
And my last year of teaching, that was a mindset shift that had to happen because I was so unhappy in my job and I was so resentful going to work every day. And I must have heard it at an event or a podcast or something because while I had stopped investing in coaches, I was still, consuming podcasts and books and stuff. And I had heard this idea of what if you looked at your 9-to-5 job as like a loan that you never had to pay back?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, I'm super grateful every day and this is great. And they're paying me to essentially on my off time work on my side business. And so we took about a 2.5-year gap from coaching and mentors. When I left my job in 2017 is when we hired my next coach. And that investment was bigger. It was
like 4,000.
I think it was like 4,000. And my business hadn't like popped because I had just left teaching. And so that was also...
You weren't making any money.
I wasn't making any money.
No.
That was a scary investment too, but we had learned the lesson before from Kathy, and we said, we have to figure this out. So at the time it meant I'm going to do more hours training clients in person.
Yeah.
Just to help cover it. And you would come home from work and I'd be behind the computer until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night.
Yep, and just one thing to clarify too, like you didn't leave your teaching job, like you would have stayed there and kept working on the business on the side, but you felt that it was more advantageous for us to move to the city because of what you were trying to build. So it might sound like we're going against the advice we just gave, but no, she only left the teaching job because we needed to move to the city, and she wasn't going to. We actually talked about reverse commuting. I remember.
Yes, we did.
We talked about reverse commuting to teach, and it just didn't make sense because we ran the numbers and we're like, this is crazy. I was happy when we moved to the city because I was working in the city, but it made sense for you to just leave the job, immerse yourself into the city, because it was kind of ingrained in like this thing that you were trying to build.
Yeah. But also for me, knowing yourself is really important. I'm like a burn the bridges kind of a girl. So for me, to not have...
For you.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me to have that sort of fire under my belly of I have to make it work, I have to figure it out, that for me is good fuel.
Yeah.
Not for everybody. So that was really important.
It's not for everybody, and I'm glad you said that, yeah.
Just like entrepreneurship is not.
Right.
And we've talked about that so many times on this podcast. But the other thing was leading up to us actually moving into the city, again, it was like getting resourceful, getting gritty, and doing the things that I knew that I needed to do, even if they felt uncomfortable. So what was I doing after school when I was still teaching and we knew that I was going to be leaving?
Yeah, you were well, it wasn't like cold calls, but it was like...
well, no. I was talking about when I was going into the city.
Oh.
So after school...
Oh, after school, you'd be going to events.
I'd go to events in the city. I'd be networking. I'd go to gyms.
You ever hear about networking, that it's, important?
Yeah. And so by the time, months later, that we moved into the city, I had job offers. People were like, wait, you don't live here?
Well, that's how you initially... Yeah, I mean, that's how you got the job at the that first gym, which wasn't just some random gym, so that was cool.
Yeah. And
then, you busted your butt and you got that opportunity at that kind of fancier gym. But yeah, I mean, the big lesson I would say is just for the people that have the full-time job, start the side hustle and just use it to fund it.
Yes.
Right? Like, figure out a way to pay for it.
Yeah.
Just figure it out so that way.
Credit card.
Yeah, unless you have no interest in starting a side hustle, which in this case, I don't know why you're here, but
for Montana, probably.
For Montana.
They're here for Montana.
Start the side hustle and just have patience, because you have the foundation of your job to fund it. It's okay if you have silent launches, whereas opposed to like us, this is our, like, we're all in now because it took us a little while to build some foundation. So it's okay if like maybe a launch flops. We don't want it to, right? But now if it's over and over and over and over, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? But it takes a while for people to get there. I think it's important for people to not look at, what do you always say, like, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 12 or whatever, right? So,
is there anything that you would say, just I'm curious, for someone who has made like a not so great investment, they know, okay, we could flip the mindset around it and I could take the lessons from it. But if you've made a not so great investment, and I think we have as well, where you're kind of left with nothing and you're like, well, now I don't know if I trust myself to make the decision to make another investment. Is this the right time? I don't really have the money. Is it sort of the same thing of like, well, go figure it out, go find the money? Like, what would you say?
What type of investment?
Education. So helping yourself, and I guess maybe this goes back to the goals.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to your goals, but I mean, the one that we got really burned on wasn't really an educational investment, but we still can apply the same, analysis to it and look at it and say, like, why did I even do that in the first place? Did I trust my intuition? Did I have all the facts? Was I kind of hoping that it was going to be something that it wasn't when I kind of had this like feeling that it wasn't? I should probably be a little more specific. Like, if you're thinking about education and like maybe you have been burned, quote, I guess, like you didn't have the transformation that you thought you were going to have. I don't think you necessarily should apply. You can't zoom out and say, well, the whole industry is crap because I worked with one coach and I didn't get the result that I wanted. Right. No, you have to look at the details and say, okay, what part of the decision-making process can I break apart and say, oh, that's where maybe I didn't listen to myself, or maybe I could have got more details, or maybe I was like a little too hopeful for what the transformation was going to be and kind of wishing that this program was that when like it wasn't.
Yeah. Also, just being honest with yourself too of like, did you do the work?
Well, yeah,
did you show up? Asking yourself hard questions.
Right. I mean, yeah, we've had clients, not many, but where they're just like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And we're like, well, you quit in month 1. Right. So it's like,
yeah, you didn't.
It might have been.
Yeah.
Might have been for you, right? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't just, the whole industry's not taboo. Like, I mean, we're testimonials of we've worked with great people that we've worked with great mentors. We currently work with great mentors, and it's what you take from each program. Are there programs out there that are a scam, possibly? I guess. Yeah. Right. But
yeah, I think for me,
you have to do your due diligence.
Right. Yeah, and checking and having conversations, asking questions, talking to people that have gone through it. for me, all the different, because I've been in so many masterminds and courses over the years, I can look back and see something that I took from all of them. And sometimes it's more tangible. Sometimes it's like a skill. Sometimes it's a person that I've met and it's that person wouldn't be in my life otherwise. Sometimes it's like a mindset shift. Sometimes it's learning something that I don't want to do in my business.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like how that was done. Not throwing shade, just like I don't want to run it that way, or I don't like how I was treated, or I love how I was treated. I love the customer support. I love their team. So there's always been something out of everything that we've ever invested in terms of the business and personal development, everything that we've gotten something out of.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to going back to your original question about how do you deal with like when you feel like it was a bad investment. You have to just do your due diligence and just make sure that the program that you're going to invest in aligns with what you want to do, like, and it aligns with your goals. Like if this promise is to help you get to your goals, and talk to the person who's running it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk to the person who's running it. Don't just don't guess and throw your money at it and think. I mean, that's a way to do it, but if you want to do your due diligence, do your due diligence. Maybe talk to people that have gone through the program. If you can't get enough people like that, then talk to the actual person who's running it. You know when something feels right, and you know when the person knows what they're talking about. And I think oftentimes like people don't trust themselves.
Right. Well, and you opened it up with something that I say all the time, and that's like, you're not actually investing in the person or the course, as crazy as that sounds. You're investing in yourself. And that's where a lot of the fear comes up and the resistance for people, because a lot of us have tried it before, or self-sabotage. We never finish anything we start, or I've tried this and didn't get results, or I'm afraid to put myself out there. And so it's really easy to sort of project out the fear that you might be having on, well, is it you? Is it your program? Is it your course? Are you going to be able to help me? When the reality is, you help yourself. And
people don't want to feel stupid.
Right. And I do believe that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so if you're sort of tuned in enough to yourself, you'll know if you've been looking for something or wanting to do something, and then it just magically kind of appears, or you're hearing about it, or seeing people talk about it, or getting this like gut intuition feel, that could be something to lean into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think an important thing is, when I say people don't want to feel stupid, it's like, it is the root of your question. Like how do you recover after something that might be a quote bad investment? It's just doing your due diligence over and over, and I guess you got to just keep learning.
Yeah. And I would leave it here, which is something that you brought up a couple times. We didn't unpack it, but there's this idea of goals, right? Specifically when we're talking about business and entrepreneurship. And so there's like the short-term goal, the long-term goal. Mm-hmm. How do they play into each other? And a lot of times we all collective humans love short-term instant gratification. We love the wins right now. We love to see the results right now. But I know you and I always have the conversations, especially when it comes to money and investing and things like that. It's like, well, where are we going? What's the long-term vision? Is this going to feed the long-term vision, even though it's not as like fun and sexy and flashy?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to make sure that if you can, you're doing something that you like to do. Yeah. Because that way, while you're doing
like working with your husband.
Of course.
Podcasting on a Saturday.
That way, while you're doing it, it's, you're not miserable while you're achieving whatever that said goal is, because there's all these quotes, right? Like the destination is in the doing and things like that. And, it's true. Like we've found our groove and we have a lot of fun. Are there tough times? Yeah, but we have fun doing what it is that we do. And we feel that if we're making decisions in the business and even outside the business, do they align with like what our goals are? And, I was thinking about this the other night. We went to an event and we grabbed dinner after with some friends, and I think about things like this, and I'm just like, a couple $100 or whatever it was for dinner, like interesting, like on a random night. But there's ways to look at things like that. Like that it was an investment in the friendships with the people that we went with, right, and the conversations and the fun, and everybody getting closer, because those are people that are kind of walking in the same direction as us, right? And we're all doing similar things. So that was something that I thought of. And the last thing I'll say about the goals piece is, people are always asking, especially our clients and some friends are always asking, like, oh, how do I invest? Like, where do I put my money and things like that? And it all just every financial advisor is going to say, like, it depends. Well, the good ones, it'll say, like, it depends on your individual goals. Like, people are always like, should I just buy this, or should I just buy that, or should I invest in this or that? And it's like,
quality of your questions determines the quality of your life.
Yeah, and it depends on the individual. I'm big on, like, hedging risk. Like, we're not, just to go into this a little bit.
Wait. Should we do another episode about this type of stuff?
Of course, but I just wanted to...
No, I was asking. Oh. Should we? Like, let us know if you're interested.
Answer.
And we can do a whole episode on sort of, how do we allocate the money and what do we do and what's our perspective?
And this is just what I'll say, and I'll leave it at this. I believe in hedging risk and, like, making sure, like, our goal is to grow the business. Yes. So if I take all of our money and then buy houses and invest it in stocks and invest it in startups, like, and then we have no runway for the business, like, how are we going to grow the business? Yeah. Like, right? So that's how I look at it. And some people say, like, yeah, but you have to live for today. And I agree with that as well.
Yeah,
right?
We did dinner the other night.
Yeah, and little trips and ski trips and things like that. And but it depends on your goals. Right. The way we look at it, and this will be the other episode, is to us, and you can live an and life with all this stuff, but to us, it's like, do we need a Fendi bag, or do I want to go have an experience like Joe Dispenza? Right? And I think one of them leads us to our goals of happiness and fulfillment and business and personal growth. Yeah. One of them clearly doesn't. Not to us. No. Right? So, goals.
But one thing that I would say, just to put a bow on it all, is that in the conversations that we've had about the bad investments, the good investments, the scary ones, the borrowing money, the creating money, the finding money, we all have like a million things that we pay for that we forget that we pay for, right? We can clean it up, Netflix and Disney Plus and all that stuff. We have learned over the years, and I think I can speak for both of us, that we find the most ROI, the return on our investment, when we invest in ourselves. So every time we invest in our own growth, in our self, in our personal, in our business, it always multiplies versus even things like you were saying, material items. So I'm always looking for, how can I invest in me first? Because that will just naturally bleed into the business. It will bleed into my relationships. It will bleed into other areas of my life. So
how so?
If I'm investing in myself?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to come in with fresh perspective, fresh ideas, new network. I'm going to come in re-energized. I'm going to come in with different ways of seeing things, and I'm just going to bring that back into the business. So the littlest things too, even experiences, like you were saying, ski trips, it's, you come back with this excitement, this perspective, this time off, this whatever it is, a conversation that you have on the slopes or on the chairlift. It's not sitting behind the computer with the cursor blinking, where we come up with the best ideas for the business. So anytime we're going to Dr. Joe Dispenza in April, it's like, I know that that's going to bleed back into how we communicate with our team members, how we hold boundaries, how we think bigger. Yeah. And it's just going to cause a ripple.
Yeah. Alex Hormozi calls it investing in the S and Me 500.
I love that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, cheers to that. Investing in the S and U.
Yeah.
As always, thanks for being here, babe.
You're welcome.
Cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.